I'll let the stream settle down before I start. It's going to be a smaller stream and it's going to be very, very targeted. So I've been reading a book for a long time, and it's a very difficult book, and it takes a lot of time to read this book because it's a very heavy book in terms of information. So I thought of kind of creating a book summary step by step, rather chapter by chapter, so that I will be able to talk about it and kind of recall the whole thing. And I to do that, I'm going to have a summary, chapter wise summary every weekend, so that so that I can document what I have understood. That will help me. That will help me. I'm not able to see a chat. That will help me document and as well as share what I have studied. All right. Okay. For some reason, I'm not able to see the comments. If any one of you know me and if you're able to comment, just send me a WhatsApp hi. So okay, so we'll continue, and to continue, first I'll have to start sharing the notes that I have created, which will be on screen now. So the book obviously is called The Design of Everyday Things by Lord Don Nummer. I call him Lord because he is the Lord of UX design in a sense. He has contributed to the field as much as no one else has done yet, according to me and my experiences. And the first chapter of this book is Psychopathology of Everyday Things. So I'm not going to cover each and everything from the books and the chapters. It's going to be a very crisp summary, and I'll be not giving the examples that he has given because that will be directly copying his content, and I don't want to do that. I want to minimize that but still summarize the chapters. So the main topics that he talks about in this chapter is what is good design, what is human-centered design, fundamental principles of interaction design, and okay, I have to be careful not editing this while showing you guys the thing, and system image and design challenges. So we'll start with good design. What is good design according to this chapter is the good design should be discoverable and understandable. So it starts with is someone able to understand the psychology and the technology? What it requires, what good design requires, is good communication between what? Between people and the machine. The people can be a PC, a VR headset, a AR headset, a mobile, or let's say a Neuralink in the modern day. And the people can be people, like regardless of how capable they are, regardless of gender and any other stuff. It should be a good communication between machine and people, and then it can be called a good design. Something about good design makes actions possible, tells you what is happening and what is about to happen, especially when something is going wrong. So this is good design. Will come to human-centered design now, it is one of the design psychologies according to the book. It puts human needs, capabilities, and behavior first. The process that ensures design matches the needs and the capability of the people for whom they are intended. That means it is a process in which, okay, I'm going to repeat this again, I guess, but when you try to match the needs and the capability of the people who are supposed to use the device or the application or the product, that is called human-centered design. Now, what it is based off is, discoverability, and discoverability is based on 5 fundamental, psychological concepts: affordance, signifiers, constraints, mapping, feedback, and he mentions it that conceptual model is a separate, which is not part of the 5 fundamental concepts, but is essential to discoverability. Now we'll talk about the fundamental principles of interaction design. And in the starting of this section, he mentions the great designers produce pleasurable experiences, and he emphasizes on experiences. And I emphasize on the pleasure part. Experiences are critical, for it determines how fondly people remember their interactions. This will come into picture later at the end of the chapter. When we interact with the product, we need to figure out how it works, which means discovering or discoverability, which can be divided into 3 parts: what it does, how it works, what operations are possible. Now, these 3 things are 3 very core concepts: what it does, how it works, and what operations are possible. We'll come across this again throughout the chapter, and we'll give names to these things. Now, I think we'll start by naming this one by one. So, affordance. Affordance is told to be a relationship, and has been highlighted that it is a relationship between the object and the people, or the person who is using it. Again, it's iterated that it is not only the relationship between the object and the people, but the properties of the object and the capabilities of the agent / the person. The person that determines how the object will be used. It determines the actions that are possible and possible interactions between the people and the environment. It says perceivable or not. So the affordance always tells you about the possible interactions between people and environment, even if it is perceivable or not. It can be perceivable or not perceivable, but it still is a affordance, regardless of if it is visible. This is where the next part comes in: the signifiers. Signifiers are the signaling of the affordance. It communicates where actions should take place. A mark, a sound, any perceived indication that communicates appropriate behavior to people. I kind of confused it with a nudge as well. I feel like nudge could also be, could be. I could be completely wrong about this, but maybe nudge can as well be a kind of signifier. But yeah, it could also be wrong. And so the signifiers can be planned or accidental. So you could put a signifier accidentally, and that can cause problems, but it's still a signifier even if you haven't planned it. And sometimes what happens is we put an affordance in a system, And if it is, perceived, if it is a perceived affordance, it acts as a signifier as well. So it is an affordance, and an affordance doesn't have to be a signifier. And he emphasizes a lot about how people confuse between affordance and signifiers because of this factor, that an affordance can also be a signifier if it is perceivable. But an affordance doesn't have to be perceivable, it can be hidden. But a signifier, which is basically an indicator of the affordance, should always be perceivable. And if it is not perceivable, the signifier has failed. So that's the difference between affordance and signifiers. Now we'll go back to the next concept, mapping. Mapping comes from a mathematical background, the term, which means the relationship between two different sets of things or objects. Conceptual models need not be accurate if mapping is easy to remember. Now, conceptual models in itself is a topic, we'll come to that, but it becomes the conceptual models need not be very accurate if your mapping is easy to remember. Now, we are jumping concepts here, but yeah, conceptual models is the next topic. We'll try to understand mapping more, and then this will make sense. Now, mappings can be of different types, but we have emphasized on natural mapping. Natural mapping is said to be the easiest and helps the user immediately to understand. Now, there are different kinds of natural mapping. There is cultural or biological mapping. It can be on the basis of principles of perception, which can be natural grouping. Patterns of control and feedback. We'll come to feedback later, but pattern of controls is very important for now. It can be based on Gestalt theory, which is a very UI centric approach. Grouping and proximity of objects, not only in UI but in real world products. Related controls can be grouped together. So I'm so sorry. That's mapping for you. The next concept is feedback. This always lets you know what the system is working on. And is it working on your command? It communicates the results of an action or start of an action sometimes, which is not mentioned here, but this is my concept. Feedback must be immediate. Feedback must be informative. Poor feedback can be worse than none. Too much feedback even worse than and annoying than little or no feedback. Feedback has to be planned, and feedback must be prioritized. You cannot be giving feedbacks which are not of high priority or any importance. Too frequent of a feedback is very annoying, and this is emphasized a lot with a lot of examples in the book. The next concept is conceptual model itself. Conceptual model is a very complex topic, and in further coming chapters he's going to talk a lot about this. But in the first chapter, it is highlighted that it is an explanation, usually the simplest form of the explanation of how something works. It's basically that, and we had discussed it somewhere here, right there. What it does, how it works, what operations are possible. So what operations are possible is basically affordance. How it works is a conceptual model. What it does is a prediction of action. This is also related to affordance. I might be confusing between a few concepts, but we'll find out. Concepts, commons are very smart. So conceptual models, how some things work. They don't have to be complete or accurate. They are only valuable if these are supported by true assumptions. If the assumptions based on which the conceptual model is based, they turn out true, the whole conceptual model is false. Sorry, if the assumptions are not true, then the conceptual model is useless. Conceptual models, when in people's mind, is called mental models, and two people can have two different mental models, and thus two mental models can have conflicts, but can be true at the same time, because the assumptions, if they are true, it's fair game. Clues to how something works is conceptual model is we have to see where it comes from. How does a conceptual model come into existence? It comes from signifiers, constraints, affordances, and mapping. So these are the concepts we have already talked about. Constraints is something we understand but is not discussed yet. Now, value of conceptual model is providing understanding of predictable behavior, what to do when things go wrong, are the two values conceptual model provides. If something is going wrong and your conceptual model is fine, you could maybe stop the loss. Or before you start working, you can predict the behavior of the system. That is another advantage. All right. So that's the main 5 concepts, and then we'll go to system images. So when a product is used by a user, the user forms his own understanding of the product, which need not be same as the conceptual model which is in the designer's mind. Now, the designer is not in contact with the user, and the product has to work away from the designer. So the user must form his own conceptual model, and the conceptual model is based on the system image that he has in his mind, which he constructs in his mind using the following things: the interactions he has had, the sales interactions that he has had, whatever he has read about the product, he has searched online, the manuals he has been provided, and the ads that he has seen of the product. This is how a system image is made in a user's mind. Now we'll talk about the paradox of technology. The paradox of technology is something I personally really feel very passionate about. And one of my favorite YouTubers, one of the Neistat brothers, Van Neistat, also highlights this in one of his videos where he is trying to fix a problem. He has a problem that he lives in a corner of the road, which is a fast corner of the road, and this might cause problems for him while he's taking out his car from his parking, because people going fast on those corners might not see his car and hit the car he's driving. So basically, accident. And to avoid this accident, he actually adds a light to his car, which is high enough so that people can see it from far. So he's basically adding a signifier on top of his car when he is leaving. And while doing that, he takes out a remote, which he can, even if the car is parked, and let's say he's taking out his bike, he can remotely switch on that light on his car. So it still indicates the same thing. While doing that, he says this remote does one thing, and one thing only: turn on that light. It doesn't do this and that and this and that. That's a best example of paradox of technology. The same technology that simplifies life by providing more functionality in each device also complicates life by making the devices harder to learn, harder to use. This is the paradox of technology, and the challenge for us designers. Now we'll go to the next section, the design challenge. So in the book, he talks about what a great design requires. He says there are two things in which a great design requires, and I absolutely agree with whatever experience I have in design. And other than design, I was in service industry as well, so I agree to this 100%. Not that it matters, but I really appreciate this. He says two things are very important for good design, that is design itself, good designers, and good management. Why good management? This is something I do from day to day, and I think we all do as designers, this as a part of our job day to day, which is, getting people on the same page. So I'll not try to over explain this, but let's go through my notes. Hardest part of product is coordination. Different disciplines argue for their perspective. A discipline could be arguing about usability and understandable. A second one could be arguing about attractiveness and affordance. Third one about reliability and ease of manufacturing and service. Fourth one about distinguishability from the competitors. Fifth one would be asking for superiority in all these things, in price, reliability, appearance, functionalities, and all those things. But finally, all that matters is actually the person who is supposed to use it buys the product. That is all that matters. If no one uses or buys, it does not matter how good the design was or how much effort did we put in creating this system or creating this product. Different disciplines have to be convinced that the matter is the person who is buying and the business. Note that I've put here is from my own experiences, that the person who's buying need not be the user himself. I think this is not just my observation. A lot of people must have observed this in B2B scenarios. In B2C scenarios, it's very common that the customer is the user, but in B2B, the customer need not be the user. So the challenge, according to the conclusion of this chapter, is to use human-centered design to produce something which is positive in terms of all kinds of results, products that engage lives, add pleasure and enjoyment. And the goal is to produce a great product, one that is successful and that the customer love and buy. So that's a summary of the first chapter of this book. Where is the book? Oh, yeah. Of the book, The Design of Everyday Things by Dan Norman. If you don't get time to read this book, you can wait for the next live podcast that I do on this topic and cover the next chapter. But I would really appreciate if you read this book. It's a great book. If you really like what I'm doing here, give a like, give a subscription. That will tell me that you want to watch more of these videos, not only about this book or maybe other books. This particular podcast or live stream series will be about the design of everyday things, and we can cover more books as the time goes on. Thank you so much. I don't promise to be regular, but I promise to be regular on Sundays. I cannot do multiple uploads every week, but I will for sure try to upload every Sunday live on YouTube.